Okay, next question is multiple questions actually, I think 4 questions. It's talking about oligopolies, right? So it says, which of the following statements about oligopolies is not correct? So an oligopoly, before we even talk about it at all, is an oligopoly, for background, is a market structure in which there are a few very large firms. So it's not a monopoly, a monopoly is there's one firm, mono. Oligopoly, oligopoly is multiple. So it's just going to be a few large firms that have large market power, right? And so that's going to be the main way to think about oligopolies. And so the first answer choice is oligopolistic firms always charge the monopoly price. B says oligopolistic firms are interdependent in a way that firms in perfect competition are not. C says an oligopolistic market has only a few sellers. And D says the action of any one seller can have a large impact on the profits of all other sellers. So let's break this down one by one. So A, oligopolistic firms always charge a monopoly price. And so that is not the correct answer, right? So that is not correct, which would make this the correct answer, right? Oligopolistic firms are only going to charge the monopoly price if they collude, right? If they can collude and charge the optimal price of a monopoly, then they would charge a monopoly price. But in a lot of cases, they're not going to collude, and therefore they would charge prices that would be somewhere in between the competitive equilibrium price and the monopoly price. So A is the correct answer, but let's just take a look at the other ones just to be sure. B says oligopolistic firms are interdependent in a way that firms in perfect competition are not. And this is true. So if we think back to our question about game theory, where we talked about how some firms are going to depend on, some firms' strategy depends on what other firms choose to do. Game theory applies specifically to oligopoly. So this is indeed the case that in an oligopoly, firms are interdependent, and that's going to be true. C says an oligopolistic market has only a few sellers. That is true. That is the definition of an oligopolistic market. And D says the actions of any one seller can have a large impact on the profits of all the other sellers. And that goes back to our game theory explanation, where one seller's decision impacts the profit outcomes of other sellers. So that's also true. So A is going to be the right answer here. Let's take a look at the answer choice. Yeah, so the previous tutor also said A. B says, which is true of an oligopoly market that reaches a Nash equilibrium? So this is again game theory. So A says the firms will not have behaved as profit maximizers. B says a firm will have chosen its best strategy given the strategies chosen by other firms in the market. C says the firm will not take into account the strategy of competing firms. And D says that the market price will be different for each firm. So B is the best answer here because that is the definition of Nash equilibrium, choosing your best strategy given the strategies chosen by other firms. And so B is going to be the right answer. And let's take a look at the other. Yep, so the other tutor also chose B. 3 says, in game theory, what is a dominant strategy? So a dominant strategy, so let's take a look at the answer choices. A, the best strategy for a player to follow regardless of what strategies other players use. B, a strategy that makes every player better off. C, a strategy that must appear in every game. Or D, the best strategy for a player to follow only if other players are cooperative. And so we talked about this in the other problem where we were going over game theory. But a dominant strategy is a strategy that says it doesn't matter what other players do, I'm going to do this strategy no matter what, regardless of the other player's decision. And so in Prisoner's Dilemma, that strategy was confess, right? That was a dominant strategy. And so A is going to be the best answer choice here. In game theory, a dominant strategy is the best strategy for a player to follow, regardless of what strategies other players use. And again, the previous tutor also chose A, which is great. And finally, 4, which of the following situations provides the largest profits for oligopolists? And so profits are maximized when oligopolists act as a monopoly. So we're going to see if one of those answer choices is going to offer us that as an option. A says that the firms reach a Nash equilibrium. B says the firms combine to produce the monopoly output level. C says the firms set price equal to marginal cost. And D says the firms produce a quantity of output that lies between the competitive outcome and the monopoly outcome. So the output that lies between the competitive outcome and the monopoly outcome, that's the regular oligopoly outcome. But the largest profits available are the monopoly outcome, and that's going to be answer choice B, where the firms combine to produce the monopoly output level, aka forming a cartel or through collusion. And so that's going to be the best answer choice. 4 is B. So the option is therefore option B. That's also the correct answer that the previous tutor provided. So it looks like we got the same answers that the previous tutor did for all 4 questions. Let's quickly read over the explanations that the previous tutor gave. So it said, 1, option A, oligopolist companies always charge a monopoly price. This is wrong because the oligopolist does not always charge higher prices. Individual companies cannot charge higher prices. They charge a monopoly price once they form the cartel and start producing at monopoly level, right? So that's, again, the same rationale that we provided, so that's good. B says that given the strategies chosen by other companies in the market, a company will have chosen its best strategy. That's a simple definition question, and so dominant strategy, that's the definition for dominant strategy. Okay, actually it looks like in 3, we got a different answer. We said for 3 that the best strategy for a player to follow, regardless of what the strategies that other players use. And I think the previous tutor says C, the correct option is option C, a strategy that must appear in every game. So that's not correct. So we're going to actually mark that wrong. 3 is option C, option A, sorry, the best strategy for a player to follow, regardless of the other strategies, regardless of the strategies other players use. This is the correct definition of dominant strategy, not option C. So yeah, it looks like I missed that somehow. So yes, option C, that is not correct. It is going to be option A. That is the definition for dominant strategy. And finally, 4, larger profits in the oligopoly is possible only if all the oligopoly firms combine and start producing the output level at the monopolist level. The option is therefore option B, the companies combine to produce the monopoly output level. So good. I think the previous tutor is making this note that individual companies cannot charge higher prices. That's not true. Like, oligopolies will charge higher prices, just they won't charge as high as a monopoly would charge. So to clarify, oligopoly firms will naturally produce a quantity of output in between competitive and the monopoly outcome. They just maximize their profit if they collude and agree to sell at the monopoly level. But yeah, other than that, that's the more clarified version, but looks like we're going to have to mark this answer wrong just because for answer choice 3, the solution is actually option A, not option C. So solution is incorrect here. And it looks like that wraps up everything that we have to cover today. Hopefully that was helpful. We've covered some commonly asked economics questions and gone over some previous tutor solutions. And again, hope everybody's staying safe and that this is beneficial. I'll see you guys later in the week when we do this again. Take care, everybody.